Your photo studies might not be as helpful as you want them to be if you're not doing these 5 things. This came up on Discord a little while ago and I thought, you know what, it's about time for a video on how to do studies in such a way that they help you draw better from your imagination. First, let's talk references. If you're only just starting out, you can pick any reference and it is great practice. But if you're at the stage where you know what you like to paint, I want you to pick a subject that is the exact opposite of what you normally paint. I personally veer towards fairly young female or feminine characters, so for this study I went the opposite way and picked a much older man. It's gonna open your mind and help you explore shapes that you might not usually come across. Plus, your visual library will be a lot more expansive. My second tip today is to not do a detailed sketch. As you can see, I start by directly painting in a very rough block in for all the big elements, and when I had that in place, I then went in and created a vague, super unrefined sketch. This allows you to think in terms of 3D form rather than flat 2D shapes. As you can guess, this is gonna help you come up with forms and compositions a lot easier when you're making your own original paintings. Tip number 3 is to focus on capturing the mood rather than every detail. Now, this is a trap that I've fallen into for years at a time. I get bogged down in replicating every single detail in the reference. Now, you might think attention to detail is a great skill to have, but sometimes it can be at the cost of getting the big shapes and mood right. And as a result, you'll end up with technically perfect paintings that have no soul. So look at the color palette and overall lighting in your reference, focus on getting those right. The details are not the focus of your study process, but an extra that you tack on at the very end. Which leads us to my 4th tip for today: the more drama, the better. As you can clearly tell, I picked a reference that has some very dramatic shadows and highlights. This is because I usually struggle with coming up with dramatic lighting scenarios just off the top of my head, and I'm guessing a lot of you guys do too. And this is just because we don't have enough dramatic light in our visual library. The whole purpose of photo studies is to fill up those gaps in our imagination, so when it comes to painting something original, we have a lot of visual references in our mind that we can always reach for whenever we need it. And my final tip for today is to practice brush economy. This is simply the process of using as few brush strokes as possible. Wherever you can, use a massive brush radius and 1 or 2 broad strokes to indicate shapes. This was my biggest challenge because it is so easy to get into the rut of rendering ultra realistic details. We forget that we're trying to paint the impression of the photo, not be a glorified copy machine. Practicing brush economy is an excellent way to change that because it forces you to think about simplifying and solving complex design issues with as little brushwork as possible. Plus, here's a bonus tip for you guys who are watching this on YouTube: limit how many brushes you use. For this painting, I mostly just used 1 brush for the vast majority of the painting. I think I used 3 other brushes. One was a pencil for the sketch that never made it into the final piece, and the other 2 were texture brushes for the pattern in his jacket, which again, I didn't want to get into the details, so I let the custom brushes do the work. But for the most part, I used this brush from the Critter 4 bundle, which is my new holy grail for pretty much everything. All in all, remember that the more conscious intention you put behind photo studies, the more you get out of it. Approach each photo study with set goals, and I promise you they will help your skill grow exponentially. If you found this video helpful, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next week with a brand new style study. Bye!